Welcome to the Helping Friendly podcast. I'm Megan and I'm here with RJ today. Hey, RJ.
Hello. Hello.
How
Happy
you?
Monday to everyone in the
Happy
world.
Monday. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. We're just getting going on the week, right?
I
Seems like
know
that's what we're
this
doing.
time of year is really crazy too. I feel like there's a million things going on this time of year.
Yeah, it's a lot. And in some ways it's like quiet, and in some ways it's not. I don't know. It's there. It's just it's a yeah. It's a weird time of year. But hopefully, like it'll all be. I don't know. There, like hopefully at some point everyone will be chill for a little bit.
Yeah, I never feel super chill, but I have this like anticipation towards like the holidays and winter break where I'm like, my job at work, school is really busy. And then I have all these like social events. And then I'm wanting to like see as much music as I can. And then I'm always working towards like the New Year's run. And so there's this like feeling of like excitement and anticipation about MSG. So this is a fun time of year for me.
That is great. Yeah, it's coming up just a few weeks away. But first, in 5 days or 6 days, maybe we're going to be at the Ardmore Music Hall in Philly. So Megan's going to be there. I'll be there. Tom, Benji. We have an amazing lineup of musicians who are going to be playing a bunch of music in tribute to Phish Fall '97. It's going to be really fun. You all should come if you're in the Philly area. You can go to osirispod.com/Philly for information, but also put the link in the show notes. Megan, what else is going on? What else do we have to talk about?
Yeah, well, before I just wanted to say that I saw a few of the musicians that are going to be playing next week. I saw them last on Saturday night, actually in Connecticut. I saw Chris D'Angelis and Cal Kehoe, and they were incredible. And I really made me excited for this week. And I was talking to Cal after, and he's really excited about it. And the musicians that are coming on Sunday, it's a pretty epic lineup. It's going to be really fun.
Yeah, and Shayna will be there. Thank you,
Yay!
thank you,
Thanks,
Shayna.
Shayna.
I was wondering, today I was like, are we explaining this show in the right way? Because it really is like, it's more like we have this group of musicians who, that whole group has never played together before. And who knows if they'll play together again, but it's a pretty amazing group. And we'll do some talking, but that'll be kind of, secondary to to the music.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what was kind of like what was going on Saturday night. This band had never played together, and seeing the level of musicianship, how they can play together, and it just sounds incredible. And I think that's what it's going to be like on Sunday. And it's one of those like once in a lifetime things, right? You get to see this group this one time playing music inspired by Fall '97 Phish, which is the best. So I'm excited about it. And I think you can stream it too, right? Isn't there a way to watch it?
Yes, volume.com/Osiris. And I'll put that link in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Yeah, it's going to be really fun. I hope people can come out.
So, Megan, we talked about this, like talking about a show from '92, which we're going to get into. But before we do that, there's a special anniversary we have to celebrate, which is
Oh, no.
that about a year ago, Megan joined the Helping Friendly podcast, and many people who are listening or watching might think like, "Oh yeah, I thought she was always there, but she wasn't. She was here like last December and reached out to us and was like, "Hey, I want to help." And you've helped immensely and added so much to everything that we do. So, thank you.
Thanks, RJ. That means a lot. It's been so fun, and I'm so grateful that you let me do this because I love it. It's a lot of fun.
It's great to have you, and Megan also contributes to Osiris Premium, which you can support by going to osirispod.com/premium. We do a bonus episode every week. You can get ad-free podcasts and a bunch of other stuff. What else? What else do we need to talk about? Should we
I
just get
think that
into it?
might be it. Yeah, we're talking about a really fun show. We're talking about 12/5/92. And this is cool because we did historical look backs in the spring. Benji came on and we did 3 episodes in March, April, and May. And we talked about spring '92, where they had that epic 54 show tour. It's crazy. I mean, if you look at Phish.net, they played almost every single day in March. So they were just, it was incredible. And then they have that amazing West Coast part of that tour that's just exciting and thrilling. And it was really fun. And then we had Alex May on in July to talk about the summer '92, and he was at a few shows, and that was really fun. Big summer for them too. They like toured Europe with the Violent Femmes, and then they had Horde tour, and then they went with Santana and did amphitheater tour in the US. So it was a really exciting year for them. And I'm excited we're kind of like coming back to it at the end of December to talk about it. And you and I haven't gotten to talk about it at all. So that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, and this and Patrick who's watching is mentioning our friend Andy's first show, which that is in reference to the Undermine episode that came out today, 12/5/97. I was there with Andy, our friend. We went to Cleveland, Ohio together, and we're getting close to the end of this season of Undermine. So we're if you haven't tuned in, please do and stay tuned because we got some cool guests coming up, including tomorrow for the 12/6 Detroit show, which I was also at. So yeah, there
I'm
it's
going to be
interesting.
sad when it's over. I have to say, it's been something to look forward to for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, I mean, I think those of us making it are gonna be happy, but I
Yeah.
do understand that. I do understand. Um, yeah, this 92, I mean, it's interesting because 92 has this, like, massive, year, like you said. I mean, so many shows, especially summer, but also they kinda just are touring all year, really. They take, like, September and October off, and that's it. And moving toward this New Year's Eve show in Boston, like, it's starting to really become the Fish that kind of like we knew, going into the mid 90s. And I was thinking about it as we were preparing for this, like thinking about Trey and what he had said to us about 92 and about thinking like in those shows that he felt like they were doing things that no other band had, like they were unstoppable at that time. And I was just kind of thinking about that as I was going through this show. But the it's an interesting tour because they go kind of everywhere, but they play 2 nights here in the beginning of December at the Vic Theater in Chicago, which is a pretty famous venue. There's still Humphreys just played there. Everyone has played there. It's a like 1,400 person venue in Chicago, and I guess it was opened in 1912 and then renovated in 1983. So since like 1983, I think it's been like a pretty serious gathering spot for touring musicians. So I think I went there a couple times when I lived in Chicago, but it's definitely a destination.
Yeah, that's so cool. I've never been there, but I've definitely heard of it. And it is cool. I was thinking about your interview with Trey too on Undermine when I was listening to this because I was remembering him saying that he was really proud of how they felt when they would leave the stage during these shows. And like I feel like there's such a precision and a playfulness to these shows that is so kind of where they were. They were really crisp, really clean, playing really fast. Their composed songs this year are just amazing. I mean, they're played perfectly. We're gonna get into it, but like the Reba and like some of the songs during the show are just like they're just so perfect and really gorgeous and also really playful. This is like the secret language year. They're doing a lot of it. And so it's really kind of fun, especially in the spring and summer. Less so in the fall, it seems like, which is interesting. But they're really growing that connection to their audience and they're playing these like 1,000-person venues. And you can see them probably recognizing that they're going to continue to grow and play bigger venues next year and thinking about how they're going to maintain that connection. It's a really cool time in Phish history.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And this is around the time like they started touring nationally, of course, and playing these venues, these theaters, like you mentioned, like the Capitol Theater became a kind of a multi-night destination. Broome County Forum in Binghamton. There were all these like the Palace Theater in Albany. There are all these places that they started going to that they would play for a long time. So this is it's an interesting year, and I don't know the thing about that might be hard for some fans is like listening to these shows. Like on one hand, they're kind of all the same, because you get
Yeah.
like you said, they're really everything's really well played and super tight, and this show has a couple jams that I think are really really good, but it also feels a little bit like okay, the first set is like 15 songs that are all played perfectly, and like is that different from other shows? So I think that's probably why I don't go back to 92 as much, but that conversation with Trey is sort of making me think twice about that. I don't know. What do you think? Do you feel like these are all kind of the same? I mean, how do you feel about that part?
Yeah, in the spring when we were doing that look back, I listened to every one of those shows. There's a lot of shows, 54 shows. And the shows that were different from the others, like the shows in California or, those shows really, really stood out because the rest of them, they sound really repetitive. I mean, they're playing, a lot of the same songs. They're playing all the riffed stuff. They just released Um, what did they release in February? Why am I blanking on that?
They released
Picture of
Rift,
Nectar.
Picture of Nectar.
Picture of Nectar, sorry. And then Rift, so they started playing all the Rift songs in the spring. And so there's just like it's all the Rift songs like over and over and over again. But they're played really well. So yeah, I don't go back to 92 a lot either. And when I do, it's those kind of standout shows that are different from the rest.
Yeah, and I mean, like, they're always a little bit ahead of the releases, right? It's like the
Yeah.
Picture of Nectar is 92, Riff 93, Hoist 94, right? But they were like kind of mixing in the songs in whenever they felt like it, um,
Yeah.
which is just it kind of that's kind of an amazing run between 92 and like, well, I guess 2000. Really, they released so many albums, but I don't know. What do you think about the first set here? Because we have what there's like there's like 15 songs, right? What stood out to you, or how did you see the flow of that first set?
I mean, it's so fast. Landlady, like just right out the gate, great opener, like classic early 90s opener. I think there's like one little flub. And from then on, I don't think there's a flub in like the whole entire show. It's just this chalk dust is like crazy energy. It's interesting because I feel like it's so different from the way Trey would craft a set list now. I think he really is kind of more into like thematic flow and thinking about where he wants to place songs, and it's so different now. I mean, you hear like Chalk Dust would very rarely be like the second song of a first set, so it's fun to hear kind of like where they place things. The whole entire set is just tons of energy. I feel like by the time Gula Papyrus comes on, you're kind of like, okay, like we're at least going to slow our tempo like a little bit, which will feel great. The Split Open and Melt is interesting. I was thinking about what the jamming is like in this era, especially in this show. It's a lot of like repeating phrases and then having those repeated phrases kind of build up to a peak. And it's not my favorite kind of jamming, but that's because I'm spoiled and I'm used to, decades of incredible Phish jamming. And it is fun when you hear them kind of start pushing things a little bit and you can see where like 93 is going to end
Yeah,
up. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think the Split Open and Melt Lizards combo is great. It's like a just a nice like the Lizards at this point is just such a it's like so perfectly played. It's a nice little break, and the Split Open and Melt started getting a little bit out there, but this is it's sort of like a totally fine first set, but at this point the energy is so high the whole time. I wonder. I mean, I just assume at all these shows, no matter which show it is, like if you're in the audience, people are going nuts, right? I mean, this is just
It
it's
sounds
sort
like
of
it.
like it never it never really lets up.
No, and the audience is young, right? This is like everybody in the audience is probably like 16 to like 23, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like there's wild energy in there. This Divided Sky is also absolutely beautiful. There's a huge pause, huge pause. And it's really, really pretty and well done. And it's so cool to see how they can kind of control a room even then. It's awesome. I wanted to also say to Lance Davis's comment of the Rift material, I would gladly take my friend over and over again, regardless of any era. And I fully support that. Opened my first show and was just unforgettable. I love that song.
What was the highlight of the set for you?
I'd say probably the Lizards and Divided Sky.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah.
Maybe the Chalk Dust too. It's pretty epic. It's
Yeah, the Chalk House is really fun. I mean, I think it's I guess for me the just that Split Open and Melt, which gets like again, it's nothing crazy, but it does get a little bit out there, into that chill Lizards was really fun. But this whole set is, I don't know, it's probably like typical kind of length. You have like every song is like 4 to 7 minutes, except for Divided Sky, and it's just like
yeah.
they're going through a lot. But I do think the second set is pretty unique, or it starts to get out there in a way that I think a lot of shows from this era don't.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that this second set, the minute tweezer starts, it's going somewhere a little bit different. This tweezer's really cool. They're just like absolutely throwing it down. They even do like a little mini vocal jam. It's a really, really cool tweezer.
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's, I guess we're getting into the part of their career where Tweezer begins to be a little bit more of a jam vehicle, right? We talk about on Undermine, we talked about the Eureka Tweezer from the spring, and there were a couple in that April May timeframe that got out there, but I feel like now we're getting into the part where like they start to get interesting.
Yeah, and they sound confident when they're playing, and this turns into like a pretty cool rock and roll jam. It sounds really like aggressive and driving and fun, and then it gets really slow, and it's cool. It's like Tweezer's starting to go on a journey in '92, and it's exciting.
Yeah, what do you think about the Reba? I mean, because I think the Reba is the like kind of the focal point of the whole show. I think. There's just
Absolutely.
it's so wild.
It's so beautiful. It's incredible. I was listening to it and listening to Fishman. I don't know what he's doing, if he's just up in the mix or but he is absolutely like giving it during this Reba. I mean, he's playing like really, really deep, like, I don't know, just like heart throbbing drums. It sounds incredible and it's perfectly played. I was listening to it. I listened to it yesterday and I listened to it again today on my walk home from work. And it's truly stunning. It's a beautiful Reba. And then it, right before the whistling, just stops in that huge peak and then it stops. And then they sing, I Walk the Line, which is just is like so fascinating. Like, what? Like, so interesting.
Yeah.
Like a
Yeah.
Johnny Cash song. Like, it's so funny. It was played 10 times all in almost all in '92, except twice in the spring, in the February and March of '93. But just so funny that they play this song. I've also just trying to think, and I'm not really a stats person and good about this stuff without like looking into it, but I haven't heard many rebas where they play another song and then do the whistling
Yeah.
after.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's pretty rare. As someone who someone should tell us, but I agree that that doesn't typically happen. And it's Mike's vocals and I Walk the Line. It seems like he's the best option for
Yeah.
for singing it. But what do you think about the actual song? Like, I mean, the cover.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. I mean, it's like one of those songs that I always wonder, like, why they would cover this song, like what prompted it. Like some songs, it's like so Trey can shred, or like so like Paige can sing and like have like amazing keyboard solos or something,
Yeah.
or so they can make fun of Fishman and make him sing a song he doesn't like.
Yeah.
There's like you understand why they cover songs. I don't understand why they're covering this song. Maybe Mike liked it. I don't know.
Yeah, it must be just Mike wanted to do it. It seems like that's because he's got like I mean, he's got an interesting take on it. But this
Yeah.
going straight in and like but the transition, is pretty cool. Like they kind of like stop, right? And then
Hmm.
start I Walk the Line and then go just back into the whistling. It's pretty interesting and I think is a little bit rare for that time period. And that whole thing is like 15 minutes, which is a pretty solid for 92. I was really
Yeah.
impressed.
Absolutely, and I just think it's so funny that they were like, "Yeah, let's play Walk the Line and let's, like, insert it after the peak and reba before the whistling." Like, yeah, I mean, it's just, like, it's so funny to me, but it works in this weird way. I don't know, it works. I like it. That to me is the highlight of the show, that whole little bit, the tweezer and the reba, Walk the Line, reba. The rest of
Yeah.
this set is great. Was there anything, I mean, the Weekapog is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the mics is like a little chopped on the audience tape,
Yeah.
which happens. But having a Mike's groove in like the third quarter of the show is pretty solid. And yeah, the Weekend Pug has a really good, nice jam in it. Again, like they were just doing they were just doing it all at this point. I mean, it never really lets up. I I wonder, do you think Reba was like their biggest like jam vehicle in 92? I wonder what else. I mean, I guess Tweezer was getting there, You Enjoy Myself, maybe some David Bowie's, but there wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot that was really pushing them out there.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely like Weekapog and Bowie. They start doing some type 2 jamming, a little bit in Stash, a little bit in Split Open and Melt. Both of those songs were like really strong, especially Split Open and Melt this year. So like a little bit there. Um, but that's really it. I mean, they start doing the Big Ball Jam. They just started that like November 19th of this year. Not my favorite thing. So they're trying to think about like type 2 jamming and what it might mean in front of an audience, I think. And they're starting to do that. I mean, they did a fair amount in the shows in California, but there's not like songs that are like consistent jam vehicles.
Yeah, we so I got to tell you there was a I got to find the show here because it's an important part of the story. Um 11/23/92 I think. Yeah. So when in our interview with Trey for 11/17/97 we had to cut some of the stuff because it was just like for we just had to. So part of what we had cut out was Trey was talking about this 92 show and reading he read the full set list of 11/23/92. I don't think that made it into the final
No, it
episode.
didn't.
No. So he read through the whole set just to explain like what he was saying about they felt like they could do anything and that was a couple weeks before this. So I think this is definitely in that realm of where they felt like they were really doing something that no other bands were doing. But when he was reading it, he read out like Weekapog, Big Ball Jam, and I really wanted to follow up and like have a conversation about like why why did you do that? Because
Why did you
listening
do the
back,
Big Ball Jam?
yeah, because
Yeah.
listening back to it is really like hard. But I know that they were doing it and it was just fun with the audience, and it's definitely not very um interesting on tape. But I wanted to ask, and then I realized if I asked then it would have like it just wasn't the right. But that was probably my
Derailed.
one shot to try to get some justification for this, because I feel like on tape it's really maybe
Yeah.
that's part of the purpose of it. It's like it's really hard just to take on tape, I think.
I mean, I think that like Fish at this point was like really thinking about connecting with their audience in a really strong way. I think that they played so much of the secret language, and that was all about like, are you with us, audience? Like, are you listening? Will you tell your friends our secrets? Will you pass this stuff on? Will you connect with us? Will you do things when we do certain things? I think that that is like they were doing exercises like that all the time this year. And I think that it was fun for them. And so this just seems like maybe an idea that someone thought would be fun because it would be like, a way that the audience is directing their playing. And, it's funny because I really dislike listening to this on tapes. I don't. I just, skip it. But it is a part of who they are. I feel like they probably were in a place where they said yes to a lot of things at this point without really thinking about if it's something that would work well or not. But it's so interesting that Trey talked about the show from Binghamton in on 11/23, because if you look at the set list, it's pretty amazing. I mean, they have like a Mike's groove that's like Mike's Hydrogen, Weekapog, Big Ball Jam, Weekapog, Hold Your Head Up, and then it lengthwise, and then back into Hold Your Head Up and Cavern. I mean, that's a pretty insane second half of that set. It's just they were doing. Well, they also had to walk the line that
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
night.
yeah. And he pointed out that that was the only cover of the night. Um,
Oh wow, that's pretty crazy. And they have
which
like
I do
Vibration of Life and David Bowie. Yeah, I mean this show it's got a lot, and
yeah.
all original, all weird, right? Like
Yeah.
all weird Fish stuff. Yeah.
So, okay. So then they into after the Weekapog, they go into Hold Your Head Up, Whipping Post. And so Whipping Post was, I mean, I don't know. I guess this was like the first time they'd played it in quite some time. But what do you think about it was 113 shows. So the first time played since a year before in 1991, which was 113 shows, which is just because they were playing so many shows. But after like 1989, they really only played this song with Fishman on vocals. I think like a lot of us, at some point got the tapes or have listened to the early shows from 85, 86, 87, 88 when they were really like they were jamming out whipping posts, 20, 25 minutes. So I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this Fishman singing whipping post. I mean, I would rather have like a whipping post jam, but maybe that just is. I think we talked about this one once before because I think maybe it just has Fish on vocals always, except for like one or two times. So I don't know. How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that song kind of like ran its course for them, but this version is crazy. I mean, Fishman is screaming like he's giving it all. I mean, he's super committed. You got to give him that. He's like insanely committed to this whipping post. It's definitely intense to listen to. I was finishing listening to the show this morning, like while I was getting ready in the bathroom, and that came on, and I was like, Jesus, like it is like 6:30 in the morning. Like this is just really not what I'm wanting to hear right now. It's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. I'd much rather, yeah, have him do like a much more classic, like jam out of that, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
I mean, it's just not. It might not ever happen again. But I would, if Brian were here, and Brian is going to come back and join us sometime soon. I don't know when, but if
I
he
can't
were
wait.
here, he would give a plug to 725.99, which is Deer Creek show that is the last time they played Whipping Post, and also, I mean, I can't believe that show 725.99 still hasn't been released, right? I
That's
don't think
insane. I know.
like it needs to be released. It's got to be up there with like the highest ranked shows that don't have a live release.
I would
I
think
mean, Big
so.
Cypress is at the top of the list, of course, but we learned we learned from Undermine that you're not you're not allowed to count Big Cypress in any comparisons of anything. But we got to get
Also, if
this.
you're a premium subscriber, I think we do an episode where we talk about all the shows that should be released.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. We
You
do.
know that Jonathan Hart has lots of thoughts about
He
shows that need to
does.
be
He does
released.
have a lot
Mhm.
of thoughts, and I also will say that attendance bias. Brian, who's watching or listening, he did 725.99 as an episode of his podcast, Attendance Bias. So, everyone loves the show, and we need to get that released. But I guess that's not what we're talking about here. What I don't
No,
think
that's
like
okay.
the Fishman thing with whipping post. I mean, it's fine, but it'd be
I
really
mean,
cool
they
if
had
they played that again.
it'd be really cool. Hopefully not with Fishman singing or just being crazy, but that they love to bring Fishman out with the vacuum in 92. He was out a lot, Hold Your Head Up is probably the most played song this year, and he was out all the time. All the time. They loved it.
Yeah,
So, it was
yeah.
fun, I'm sure.
When you hear the tweezer or the Reba or the mics, anything from this show or this tour, is there anything different in their sound from? I know you said you'd listened to a bunch from spring and earlier this year. Like, do you hear anything different in the sound between spring and December?
Hmm. No, I mean, I think that like precision and playfulness is definitely kind of like the two things that I think of for the whole year.
Yep.
I think especially the longer the tours go on, I mean, I think that like they were at a point when they were playing really, really consistently a lot, they were looser and more willing to take chances. And so I think that's why you ended up having this like amazing run in the West Coast in the spring. But I think they still are just super tight and really, really precise. How about you? Do you hear anything?
No, I feel like the California shows from April, like the April May shows feel a little bit more. Um, they might just be like a little bit more exploratory. They feel a little bit like looser, you know.
They're a little
Um,
bit closer to like modern Fish, which is why we probably like them.
yeah, yeah, probably, yeah, yeah. It feels like a little bit more. Yeah, there's like a little bit more there. Um, but it is interesting. They're getting back to their home region toward the end of the year and have this big. I assume that the 12/31/92 show in Boston, that was like a pretty big deal, and they toured right up until I guess like the 13th of December, and then took some time off, and then did a 4 night run for New Year's, which is that's a pretty big deal. So they're making their way back toward the home region for the end of this.
Yeah, and this is the biggest New Year's this is their first 4-night New Year's Eve run, and it's gonna be at the biggest place they've ever played, so it's pretty exciting. They're definitely growing a lot, and
Yeah.
a really exciting time for them, and I'm sure they had a lot booked for '93 that they were pretty excited about
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. And they didn't, I mean, so much happened in these years. It was amazing. Um, what else? I mean, what else about this show stood out?
It's just I've been just thinking about what the whole year was like, and I think it's been really interesting because I haven't ever spent as much time as I have this year listening to '92, and I feel like I've learned a lot about where they were then and also what happened next and why it makes sense. I think you don't ever get to play the way you start playing, especially in like '94, if you haven't played this way, right? Like you have to play super tight, super connected, really complicated music and music that shifts on a dime and also be ready to like listen to each other in a really strong way. And it's been so cool to hear. That's why that Undermine episode was amazing because to hear Trey talk about how that was such an intentional shift for them, how they felt like they've always been trying to do things that they haven't done before. And so you can kind of see why at the end of '92, beginning of '93, they're thinking like, okay, we can do this now. Like we need to find something else that will, force us to continue to grow and evolve.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, like the theater thing that you mentioned earlier is just it's crazy because starting in '93, they start to play like the May show we talked about at the Field House in at University of New Hampshire. They start to play like more like fairgrounds, and they play at the Man for the first time, and Wolf Trap, and they play all these like amphitheaters for the first time the next summer. So this is kind of like the last. This is kind of the last like tour of theaters that we get from Fish. So I wonder how what they were feeling at the time about where this is going next. But they played theaters in '93 and some in '94, of course, but it just became like a much bigger deal, like kind of immediately when they took off in '93, which is just sort of amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like my first show was like fall of '94 and it was in a theater, but it was in a pretty big one. But it was kind of a smaller town in Michigan, and I think that like they were still in some kind of like areas playing smaller shows, but it was becoming more and more rare. And thinking about, '93, you've got the Marat Gin in August. So like they're building up to this and where they're gonna go at that point is just, I think so much changes after that. And it's really exciting. And we'll be able to talk about that next year, which will be fun. Talk all about like what 1993 was about.
Yeah, it's crazy. And I think the song selection is the other thing. They're just like in this show, it was pretty heavily weighted towards, like 90, 91, 92. And that it makes sense. Like you said, they kind of just like we're going through all those songs. And 93 looks a little bit different, but this tour it's kind of like the end of an era in a way, which is sort of interesting because they really are in a totally different place when they come back, and the sound too, right? Like the first show of '93 is Page's first with the piano, and like that kind of changes the sound again, and they start playing in these bigger rooms. So it's cool. It's like it's sort of the end of the small version of Fish.
Yeah, truly. The small and the kind of contained. I think that like when I think about this kind of fish, you listen to it and it feels very like contained and like perfected and tight. And so it's really fun to think that it's going to start to like stretch out and loosen
Yeah,
up. And yeah, it's just really exciting. Brian from Attendance By says 1992 was the last time you could probably catch them in a club. It's probably true. They played Roseland Ballroom in '92 and '93, and they were playing the MSG by the end of '93.
yeah,
That's
but
crazy. I
yeah,
think it was '94, right? '94.
94.
Yeah, right. Oh, he just corrected himself. Yeah, end of '94.
But
Yeah, they're
it's
gonna play that
true.
12:30 '94 show. It's gonna be their first MSG show.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
I mean, that's crazy, right? Like a year and a half later, they're playing at Madison Square Garden, headlining.
yeah, yeah. I mean, okay. So are there any other like would you recommend that people go back and listen to more 92 shows, or do you feel like if you 'cause I feel like for some of these archival shows there's like a few there's a few well-known shows from 92 and people listen to them. Is there any reason to go in more deeply?
And I think if you haven't heard the April California shows, I think those are like amazing. And I would definitely listen to them. Those are worth listening to outside of just hearing like the same 92 stuff. But I think it's fun to listen to a few. But I definitely think those shows stand out as the best of the year.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I agree. And I think next week we're going to jump forward a couple of years, and we're going to keep bringing you some sort of archival fish up until the New Year's run. And we do have some cool stuff happening around the New Year's run, so stay tuned for that. But Megan, is there anything else we need to? I feel like we like Fish in '92. We efficiently and precisely played our way through this show.
And playfully.
And playfully. I don't know. My friend Dave, who texted last week and said it was a really fun show because there was a lot of good banter. I feel like my banter was lackluster today, but I'm gonna keep
Yeah,
trying.
same.
I'm gonna keep trying. It's hard to get good banter going on a Monday, you know?
I know. It's like you're tired. You're just starting the week off. You don't have stories to tell yet. I mean, I could share a lot of stories about my weekend, but they might not be appropriate for everybody.
Inappropriate stories are the best kind of banter.
Yeah,
They are. They really are. Um,
exactly.
but actually, was that before we started recording that you mentioned the LCD sound system show?
Oh, yeah, yeah. On Friday, I went to see LCD Sound System at Brooklyn Steel, and I'd never seen anything like that. It was just really cool because it's like electronic music. So they have a DJ up there, but then they also had about at least 6 or 7 people playing percussion. They had a drum kit, percussion set. They had keyboards, guitars. It seemed like when you looked up, everybody was playing like some sort of percussion at some point. It was wild. The energy was through the roof, and there was it just never let up. Everybody was just really like putting it out, and I thought it was an amazing show. And I know he's kind of notorious for hating on Fish and the Grateful Dead, but it was still a really good show.
Well, aren't they playing like tons of shows at Brooklyn Steel?
Yeah, they're doing 20. Mhm.
Okay, so but they
Now,
stopped playing for a while, right?
I think so. Yeah, I don't know that much about them, but I think they did like 10 last year and then they're doing 20 this year. I know that they do they play majority like mostly the same set list, but a little bit
Yeah,
different. I went with a friend who's a really big fan and he was like telling us all about it and yeah, it was a really fun night though. I had a
nice.
really good time. Yeah, it was great.
Nice. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing. Okay, so I guess for those of you who weren't here at the beginning or might not have heard it, if you are in the Philly area or if you're around Philly generally, consider coming to hang out with us on Sunday, the 11th. We're going to be talking Undermine, and we have this amazing band that's going to be playing a bunch of music that you won't hear again, probably. Um, so check that out. The link will be in the show notes for that. Megan, is there anything else we need to do?
Do we want to tell everybody about Sunset Lake CBD?
Yes.
We
Yes.
should, right?
Yes.
Okay, we really should.
I think you should.
You think I should? Okay.
Yeah.
So everyone knows that everyone here at HF Pod loves Sunset Lake CBD. They've got a line of smokable hemp products. They're for the old deadhead or for the young fish fan, or I don't know, maybe even the new LCD sound system fan. Anybody searching for a mellow body
Yes.
high, right? You never know. I
Yeah.
mean, I think you need to chill out if you listen to a lot of that music. So CBD might be like really good for you for that. And smoking CBD has all the benefits of high THC cannabis, but you're not going to get those paranoid and anxious side effects. Sometimes I feel like that. So this is a really nice way to just like mellow out, but without that. They've got 9 different strains from this year's harvest. So there's really something for everyone. All their flower is grown, cured, and trimmed by Sunset Lake CBD farmers. And what's the best about them is that they have a farm to table approach. So you're going to get your products directly from their farm. So they ship really quickly and they have great pricing. So check them out. Go to sunsetlakecbd.com. You can use our code HFPOD. You're going to get 20% off all your products. It's the holidays. This is the time of year when you buy stuff for people. You can buy some CBD pet products to put in your dog's stocking or give your dog for Hanukkah, or you can buy some CBD flower for friends that you want to hang out with and just have a nice like holiday chill time. So many options. CBD sleep gummies, tinctures. RJ likes the tinctures when he's traveling. So, something for everyone. So check them out. Sunset Lake CBD.
That was awesome.
Thanks.
I second everything Megan says, and everyone who's listening and watching, wish Megan a happy 1 year anniversary of being part of the HF Pod team. Thanks, Megan.
Thanks, RJ. Thanks, everyone. And one of the best things about doing this is getting to meet everyone that I've gotten to meet. So thank you for everybody that comes and says hi to me. And I hope you keep doing it.
I agree.
All right, great. Well, I think we're good then. And we hope to see everybody in Philly on Sunday. Thanks,
Bye,
everyone.
everybody.